We're going to talk about phenomenology. What is phenomenology? And the question seems a simple one, but the answer is not. So this is only the first attempt to answer this question. And we'll have to look at this question from many angles in the coming days and months and years. So this is just a beginning, just one way phenomenology can be understood or explained. So what is phenomenology? On the face of it, phenomenology can at least be divided into three things. Phenomenology phenomenology can be a doctrine, a philosophical doctrine, and in fact many phenomenologists have developed doctrines, different doctrines. So you can find existentialist phenomenologists, you can find non-existentialist phenomenologists, and so on. The second aspect of phenomenology can be a method. So it's just a way to do philosophy, not a particular doctrine. And if you arrive at a particular doctrine, so be it, but that doctrine has nothing to do with phenomenology as such. And then people can differ on methods. For example, method can be seen as more technical, whether it become in Huzul, or more of an orientation, as we see in Heidegger, for example. And then phenomenology can be a movement, and it was a movement on a stage, a movement with a mission. And then like every movement, it splits, and then it has its main groups and splinter groups. So definitely philosophy, phenomenology as a doctrine exists today and method exists today. I don't know whether it still survives as a movement. So that's the first thing. So that's why, if depending on where you look at, you will define phenomenology differently. But today, at least, I'm going to define phenomenology more from a Heideggerian perspective. At least one of the Heideggerian perspectives, because then in Heidegger you have earlier Heidegger, middle Heidegger, later Heidegger. So we are not really concerned with personalities, we are concerned with ideas. So I'm going to use some of the ideas from Heidegger to explain what phenomenology is, or at least one of the meaning of phenomenology. Okay, so phenomenology is normally, one of the way to define phenomenology, just break down the word, and you will see that it is to divide in two words, Greek words. So phenomena means that which appears, and logos means study. So basically phenomena would be the study of appearances, the study of what appears. So that seems innocuous enough. Now Heidegger himself defined phenomenology, this word a bit differently. So he said phenomenon means not just appearance, but that which shows itself. So it's similar to appearance, but appearance has a connotation of what appears. There might be something hidden as well, which is not apparent. So appearance, as we see in Kant, you have appearance, and then you have thing in itself, or in philosophy you always talk about appearance and reality. So probably Heidegger is trying to avoid that dualism by this. So phenomena is that which shows itself. So these are very important, showing and itself. Okay. So from there you will see, let it show itself. Now the second one is logos, which we said in studies, and in English we always use this term like biology, study of life, zoology, study of animals, etc. But Heidegger will go a bit deeper. He says that logos is from Lego, Menon. And Lego Menon is close, that which is exhibited. So with phenomena we said that which shows itself, that which shows itself, that which shows itself, and legomenon is that which is exhibited. And by combining these concepts, Heidegger tried to define in quotation marks, try to show what phenomenology is. So phenomenology, according to him, is, in this instant anyway, phenomenology is to, which color we should use, this one, okay, to let that which shows itself, so that was phenomena, in itself, so shows itself in itself. So that's just its way of putting the meaning of phenomena. To let that which shows itself in itself be, let's use another one for logic, be seen from itself. So seen from itself is sort of his rendering of the meaning of legomenon, which he said mean that which is exhibited. So Phenomena is something which shows itself in itself, and legomenon is exhibition. So let the phenomena which want to show itself in itself be seen, be exhibited. Don't interfere with it. That would be important. Don't interfere with it. Don't interfere with it. And we'll see how we can interfere with it. Don't interfere with it. Yeah, let it be. Let it be. Like as if, advise to parent, let your kids be. Don't suppress or don't oppress their natural tendencies, as long as not too dangerous. So phenomenology, to let that which shows itself in itself be seen from itself. So in that sense, this definition of phenomenology, we can see phenomenology as a method, but in more non-technical sense, because it's really more not really a method, but more as a plea or advice. Let the things be. And that goes to the movement character phenomenology at the start. One of the slogans, I think it's more associated with Max Scheler. Max Scheler was who took the idea of phenomenology, I think, from Husserl. He's a younger contemporary of Husserl. I don't know whether he studied with Husserl, but he was influenced by Husserl. But he developed phenomenology in a slightly different direction. And one of the slogans, which is, I don't know, attributed to him or associated with him, is, can be translated as towards the things. Or more, a different translation would be back to the things. So what does it mean, towards the things, back to the things, to let that which shows itself in itself be seen from itself? So this is another way. So if we try to rephrase Heidegger's definition of phenomenology, we can say that what phenomenology is to let things show themselves in themselves and be seen from themselves. So something like that. I just made it up. But so the question is, if we take this slogan seriously, so that will imply that it is in the nature of things to show themselves. Or if you're taking a thing itself, in itself. And it is in the nature of things to be exhibited, be seen from itself. So if we have to plea to let things show themselves and let them be seen, so it must be that somehow somebody or we are covering things up. We are covering things up. We are not letting them exhibit themselves. So the question is, there are two questions which suggest themselves straight away. One is, what are the reasons that things are being covered up and are not being let to show themselves or be seen or exhibit themselves. So what are the reasons? What is the reason, or if there are more than one, what are the reasons? And once we know the reasons, probably we will also know how to get back to where things can let them things can show themselves and they can be seen, and we can see the things rather than covering them up. So these questions are related. So let's take the first one. I just want to allude to those reasons. So there can be two reasons, and there are at least two reasons that I have sort of whenever reading Heidegger, I have detected. Or one is related to general human condition, general human condition. So it is always present. The way our mind works, the way, at least one way we are in being in the world. But the other reason is more specific. That's our modern civilization. You can call it modernity or scientific civilization. And one of the things which Heidegger mentions in this context is objectivism or even subjectivism, and they're both related. The way modern philosophy actually has developed, etc. itself has discovered. So this is a long debate, but I just want to quickly mention one example of each of these. So how does general human condition, the way we are, one way we cover up things is, or at least not let them show them in their fullness, is our familiarity with things. And the way the necessity and practicality of life necessitates or dictates that we see things and deals with them in a let's say, in a cursory manner. So you can just just to give a very trivial example, if you come at a new place or new city for the first time, you will notice a lot of things. But once you have familiarize yourself, you will not notice a lot of things, or they will just be in your background, or your mind would just fill in the blanks or forms automatically, and you won't see those things in fullness. Or let's say one person who has come from a remote village and never seen traffic lights or never seen all these strange things, he will be really puzzled and marvel or whatever. Or we go to see an amazing valley and we will, enjoy it in its newness, etc. But once we have settled down in those places, we will hardly notice them. So that's just in a nutshell one of the way we can hide things. We can cover up things partially or fully. It's just a necessity of life, or the way our minds work, for example. And from the scientific civilization and modern philosophy, like in modern philosophy, one of the things which happens from so this is nothing to do with the human condition as such, but it's the particular way our civilization has worked. So Descartes, for example, he finds that everything can be doubted, and the most absolute certain thing is I, that is myself. So myself is the anchor for my being in the world, and I see the world through the prism of this I. And this was developed in various ways by Kant and Fichte. So what Heidegger and other phenomenologists say is that in modern world, our subjectivity, which is a dominating subjectivity, it has covered up things by trying to see things in presupposed conceptions and ideas, for example. And this becomes very obvious through science, because we're dealing with the world and things as objects that is to be understood in a particular way and then manipulated and basically dominated for our own interest. And that's one way to look at things. But if this becomes a whole thing, then obviously we are going to miss out on a lot of other things if this become a dominant way of thinking. So these are the two reasons in a broad brush. We would have to spend a lot of time if we want to go into the details of that, but just to give you an idea at this point. So then the final question is how we reverse these two trends, and at least for time being. So what's the way to get back to things? So there the question of method comes up, and different phenomenologists too. I mean, one obvious way is to loosen the grip of, at least when we are in daily life and certain aspects, the grip of scientific thinking, and try to see things from non-scientific and pre-scientific or post-scientific perspective, etc. That can be one way, and it requires preparation, trying to look at or reflect on our biases, etc. And then that might help us to get out of those biases and try to look at things differently. And other phenomenologists, like Husserl, for example, has suggested more specific technical things like bracketing things or reduction. I don't want to go into that because I'm mostly looking at it from a Heideggerian perspective in this one. If you want to look at how Heidegger does this, just a living example of it, so you should look at his, for example, a small piece called the thing. I think in German, das Ding. It's available on the net, and if somebody can't access it, I can put the link in the description, and you will see there how he tries to get back to things. And one of his ways, criticizing science, etc., not rejecting, but critiquing it, but also using poetic language, which is the exact opposite of scientific language. That let him suggest, allude, and show. So it should be really read as a poetry. If you read it as a more argumentative piece, you won't get much from it. So that's one of the way different phenomenologists, especially Heidegger, try to get back to things in their fullness or from a different perspective from the one which we are used to. So I hope this helps you to get some idea of what phenomenology is. I'll try to look at some of the things which I just suggested in other videos, and we will slowly look at other phenomenologies as well as time goes on. Thank you.